So I joined, first year physio school at ATI, and with a bunch of expectant 60-odd students, I think we were, 12 young men and the rest of us young women. We all headed up to ATI to be welcomed by the then president of the society, Mike Lamont, and Fran Elkin was our new head of school. She'd been plucked out of Middlemore Hospital and at great pace sort of put this school together. And we were a really interesting cohort, I think. It's hard to compare. How do you know what subsequent or preceding years of physio students actually look like? But they were certainly very interesting, very heady, challenging times, but absolutely great. The friendships we've cemented through those years have stayed with us. I mean, I guess we were all from a pretty level playing field. We knew that we were the rejects from Otago. Some of the students had actually been down and been interviewed and got to the point their heads of physio schools would actually do things like look at their hands and say, yes, we think you'll be a good physiotherapist during interview, or look at the length of the hair and say you'd have to get that hair cut, because you must remember it was the age when guys had hair way down to their shoulders. And so that was kind of there was a collective knowing that we were not in Dunedin, that we were in Auckland and embarking on a new experiment, if you like. And I must admit that I had notions about physio school that were not realised during the time there. I expected, this was my tertiary education, and I expected the school to be much more like a university. And I was surprised when attendances at every single lesson were ticked off in a register, and you were told in no uncertain terms that you had to be there, and it was sort of 8 to 4:30 every day, and I just wasn't expecting that level of control, I guess. I wanted much more freedom than that. That was a surprise. I mean, I realise now that there's a certain number of clinical hours that you simply have to do in a physio training, and you have to be there. You can't be skiving off, but I would look in envy at my students, my friends who were at university. So that was a surprise to me, very much like being back in school, and which I'd been so keen to escape. And the second surprise, I guess, was that it seemed to me that so much time was wasted on spurious activities. We had a year, for example, of massage. I mean, the guys loved it, getting their hands on these young females, but I got completely tired of it. I think we did upper limb massage for about 3 months, and things like group classes and different activities, and I couldn't really see the point of them. I loved, going to Professor Carman at Auckland Medical School and learning the gritty stuff of anatomy, and heading down to the bod room and spending ages in there looking at the body. I loved that concrete stuff, but some of these other things I just couldn't see where they were ever going to fit in, and why I needed to do massage for a whole year. And we did it into the second year as well. So I wasn't prepared for that, really. And the third thing that took me by surprise was this feels unfair saying this, but the calibre of the teaching, really. I felt, again, I had expectations about the kind of lecturers we would have, and they didn't always, in my view, step up to what I had hoped for. And again, I realise now that these people were actually literally plucked from wards in hospitals with weeks before the school opened, and told, you'll be teaching this, and you'll be standing in front of a group of 20 or 30 or 60 students, and you'd better sort out your curriculum because we've got nothing coming from Dunedin to help us. Billy McLeod apparently held on to the curriculum from Dunedin and wasn't prepared to share it with ATI. So very much, the physios, the lecturers were really put in vulnerable positions, I think, unwittingly, and just there didn't seem to be any way around that. That was their task. They had to teach us. So I was, pretty critical, I guess, of some of the teaching and the way it was, the way that we were expected to learn. So those seem the negative impressions, and I don't want to portray that. I'm aware of the difficulties, and we had a reunion just last year, and we got together and talked with Fran Elkin and Barb Miller and different people, and Margaret Hursley, and it was just evident that the difficulties and the challenges that they faced when they were setting up that new school, absolute pressure on time, no resources, no camaraderie or collegial support from Dunedin, and they were basically abandoned to teach this group of expectant students. So it was just circumstance. But, when you look back on that and you think, well, maybe they taught us indirectly, they taught us how to be good lifelong learners, and actually just imparted some skills that have stayed with us, because it's not as if we've been a year of complete Luddites. There's a number of us who've done different and interesting things. So the plus side was this incredible togetherness of this cohort. And as I say, I'm not sure if there would have been a year like it since. We just had some fantastic people, interesting, diverse people, students that year that were with us for the 3 years. And we were really a united bunch. We did a lot of activities together. We supported each other through the 3 years. We had some completely mad times. The guys especially, I think, had a fantastic sense of humour, and it was the kind of Monty Python days. We did crazy skit things and in our own time, and we enjoyed just a real strong social network, both outside and both inside the school. So there were just many, many occasions. We would organise car rallies, and there were rugby matches, and evenings we had to raise funds for a band we wanted to play at our graduation ball, so we had a highly illegal gambling night at our flat, actually, in Manukau Road, and a number of the tutors came, and we raised the necessary money for the band, and had a fantastic night at our graduation, and we would have, silly party dinners and silly party walks through the city, and just good stuff. There was often a party going on, and most of us were in there. So it felt like a really close unit, and that has pretty much stayed with us. There is a lot of archival material, actually, a lot of letters, a lot of poems, a lot of songs that were written, a lot of different techniques that we used. We had one friend who would use mnemonics as a way of remembering, classifications of disease or signs and symptoms for disease, and Mike would write out all these complicated mnemonics, and then he would get to the exam and he'd remember the mnemonic perfectly but could not remember what each letter actually stood for. But these mnemonics were spread around in case they would help each other learn. And the second year we were told that we could go and learn, something outside physiotherapy, which was pretty forward-thinking. So some of us learnt guitar, some of us learnt, spent time writing poetry. I learnt how to type. Some of us did, just a broad range of things that enhanced our whole kind of learning experience. And these, again, were shared often. The fruits of this paper was shared amongst the students. So, it was. We did things within school as well that were quite moving. I remember we had a psychology student, a psychology lecturer, Marianne Boyd, and she came and lectured us in a very informal setting, and we had an absolutely intense very personal sharing time with Marianne Boyd within groups, within a smaller group, maybe about 15, 20 of us at a time with her. And I can remember the classes, started sort of at 2 o'clock and they would go through till 6 or 7, and we'd be sharing this very in-depth feelings about where we were at in the world at the time and how we were finding not just physiotherapy but all aspects of our life. And she engineered it really in a very professional way so that we weren't left feeling distraught, but it was a very close sharing time for us amongst our students. And we all loved Marianne Boyd's psychology lectures. We wanted more of that. And then, of course, great experiences once we got out into the hospital, and very, very funny things happening up at Green Lane Hospital. And it was the good old days when the ginger nuts, we still had, ginger nuts and biscuits for morning tea. Believe it or not, the hospital would provide biscuits for morning tea. And Kerry Baker, one of the students that we were with, we were sitting up there in National Women's and doing the cardio-respiratory run up at National Women's, and one of the consultants, we're sitting around morning tea, one of the consultants was there, and a number of our lecturers, and quite a big bunch of us actually. And Kerry was, dunking his 15th ginger nut, like you did, and the damn thing fell into the cup of tea, but he rescued it, picked it up, this limp biscuit, put it on the table and started doing CPR to it, much to the amusement of all of us there. So yeah, we had a really, really good time. We went for trips. Waddy and I had a series of combis, and we'd often head up for weekends up north, explored all the beaches up north, and take the guitars and several. I mean, our mates were the students that we were with, and we'd fill the van up and head up and hang out in the pubs and park this combi in some remote spot, and strong weekends like that just left you with a really good feeling for the people that you were with. So I think that was a great time. I think probably we all relaxed as we got into the school a little bit more. First year, second year, we realised that we could do this, that we were on the path, that things seemed to, our lecturers seemed to get better, our lessons made more sense, and as we were moving through into the clinical year, and then stepping out into the hospitals in Auckland. So it felt good. And then, of course, we were absolutely over the moon when everybody that sat the final exams, the written and the practical, actually passed them. And this was huge, not just for us, having got our ticket, but also for the school, because it was an outside standard. We were as good as Otago. We'd passed the national exams that were examined by external markers. So we felt pretty pleased about that, and I can remember the absolute pride and joy from Fran and Barb and Marion Hannon and Margaret Hursty and all the lecturers at the time, Pat, that we had actually achieved this. Kate Haswell, it was great. And I think Fran actually gathered, we were all waiting out in the courtyard there and at White Cliffs as it is now, and Fran actually told us, I think in advance, of what she should have done, that we had actually, yay, we'd all passed. So that was a very special moment. So from there we headed out. That was the days where we were still bonded, and we'd put ourselves in hospitals knowing that we'd be there for a couple of years. And Waddy and I were keen to work in different hospitals, and we'd put down we'd like to go to Hawke's Bay, one to work in Napier and one to work in Hastings. So we scored those placements, which was fantastic. And we had friends leaping about and crying in the most desultory way because they'd ended up in places like Invercargill, and which at that time from Auckland seemed like the other end of the earth. But we all kind of we've kept in touch. I can't remember the figures, but the number of people who came to the reunion, of those we could track down, something like 70 or 80% came last year. So I think it indicates that we felt very much mostly a pretty united group.